Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Random Redshirt Podcast. It has been a minute, but welcome. I am one of the hosts, Zach, and the other host is Chris. What's up, buddy?
Hello, Zach, my dear friend. Awesome and excellent to see you again. It has been a minute. It is wonderful to be back here with you, to be back here talking about what we love to talk about. Thank you, everyone from around the world and the interwebs, from joining us, and hopefully from Antarctica and some other, I don't know, obscure like place that we wouldn't know. Maybe Easter Island or the Falkland Islands or somewhere. That'd be wonderful. If you're there, you can let us know. Happy Star Wars Day out
Yeah.
of the blue, right? So
Yeah.
there we
Yeah.
go.
For
Yeah.
those of you watching or listening, you're going to go, well, wait, Star Wars Day isn't today. It was, yesterday or
Mm.
day before yesterday, whenever you're watching this. But at the time of our recording, we are recording on May the 4th, which is Star Wars Day. And even though we're not talking about Star Wars today, we do want to recognize that. As part of Star Wars Day, watched a little bit of A New Hope that was on TV earlier before dinner, and I also watched episode 4 of Andor season 2.
Ah,
So that was my Star
wow.
Wars. Yeah,
Wow, you
yeah, man,
celebrated Star Wars Day proper.
I did. Yeah, I've been watching through. Have you started watching season 2 of Andor yet? Because like I
I
said, I'm through episode 4.
I am sorry to say I have not. I have been I, I need to get with it, my
You need to
friends.
get with the program, Chris. Like someone's gonna pull your nerd card if you're not careful.
I need to go and yeah, and watch some Star Wars. I haven't watched indeed I have not watched much of anything at
Yeah, you've been
all.
busy
Yeah.
though. You've been
Hmm.
traveling and you've been
Yeah.
busy and things like that. So
Yeah.
I traveled last weekend.
Hmm.
And then when I got back, I think it's when I got back, I watched the first 3 episodes of Andor, and then I had not picked it up all week this past week. It was just real busy with work and everything.
Yeah.
Um, and then my son's little league and everything else. So I decided, hey, it's Star Wars Day. Why wouldn't I watch Star Wars? And so I watched episode 4 of Andor. Now, in case you're concerned, Chris, about not like remembering some highlights and things from season 1,
Yeah.
the first episode of this second and final season of Andor, they do a really good recap from season 1 before the episode actually starts. So I think if you just watch that, you'll be good. That's what I did, and I didn't find myself missing or not remembering a ton of things that were super important.
Oh, wonderful. That's going to be good. That's going to be very good. Because I remember, what I recollect from the first season of Andor is us like complaining about him being on that prison planet for a while and like, wow, he's
Yeah.
on that prison planet for a while. And that's primarily what what I remember.
I,
Wow.
yeah,
Look at
I will
that. Yeah.
say, I will say, at least for the first, now the first 6 episodes are out. I've watched the first 4. So far through the first 4 episodes, I haven't felt like they've been stuck in one place for a long period of time. They've gone quite a bit all over the place, actually, from different planets and with different characters and beginning to continue to build these pieces as we get closer to, the end, which would
Hmm.
be where Rogue One, I believe, would pick up. I'm assuming that's how they're going to roll it into that. And then they also do this cool thing in the episodes, at least in season 2, where like I think it's at the beginning of the episode, it'll say like BB4 or
Oh,
BBY3,
okay.
BBY4, which
Yeah.
is before the Battle of Yavin,
Yeah.
BBY. So like 4 years before the Battle of Yavin, 3 years before the Battle of Yavin, whatever, right? Which is kind of neat. So it's helping you kind of frame and cage your thoughts on where this particular moment in time is in this episode compared to the rest of the timeline between the beginning of Andor as we get close to Rogue One and then episode 4.
That's good. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so far I've really liked it. I'm enjoying it. It has its kind of slow pace. I think that's just the way they're doing this show,
Yeah.
where it's a very slow, methodical way of storytelling. But I have found myself enjoying season 2 more than season 1 so far.
Most excellent, most excellent. Yeah, the other thing from season one that stood out to me was I remember that the speech or the I don't want to say monologue, it wasn't a monologue, but it was a speech from one of the rebel leaders, and so I remember being really impressed with that. So I
Yeah.
thought, yeah, nice.
Yeah, it's been good. So I'm looking forward to continuing to watch it. Couple more episodes to catch up on. I think the next few episodes drop this coming week, so I'll be behind even more, but that's okay. I've been, like I said, I've been enjoying it. I think it's been good. If this is your first time watching or listening, and you are interested in Andor and you like Andor, I believe, Chris, we did a
Almost
season one
episode by episode, yeah.
of Andor. I thought we just did a season one recap. I know we did. We
Oh,
did.
okay. Yeah.
We did the episode by episode for Ahsoka, which, looking back, was probably a mistake, but that's okay. It was still fun. It was still fun.
Yeah, it
We
was
still
still
enjoyed it.
fun.
But I believe Andor, we just did a season one recap, and I believe that was in an audio only format because I think that was before we did our YouTube channel
Mm,
or
yeah.
started our YouTube channel, I believe.
Yeah,
So
potentially.
yeah, I can't remember exactly. I have to go back and look. But if you're watching or listening to us and you're interested in our season one discussion of Andor, go check out your favorite podcast platform. I believe it's back in one of our earlier seasons of our show. So
That's awesome. Hey,
yeah,
can I share something before we
yeah,
go?
please,
Yeah,
of
yeah,
course,
yeah.
of
Because I
course.
I know you had been you told me about the show Foundation
Oh yes,
on Apple TV, right?
Apple TV.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah. I haven't seen it yet, but I know you were really impressed. And so it was I got the fourth book of Foundation. I haven't read it, and I think there's three books before this, but got Foundation's Edge. So looking forward
nice.
to the as I fill this in and get to read them. So it'll be
Did
kind
you
of
pick
cool.
that up at like on Amazon or Barnes and Noble
This
or at
was
a
this was
used
like a
bookstore? Or?
yeah, library sale.
Oh,
A
library.
library sale, yeah, today.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, in Anchorage, so it was good.
Oh, so the library was selling off some of its excess stock of books, and that
It
was one of them.
was, and it was crazy busy there.
I'll
Oh my
bet.
goodness. Yeah.
Yeah, because you get good deals, right, on those kind of
Yeah.
books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was good.
I have watched the first four episodes of Foundation, but it's been a little while. Like I kind of put it down for a little bit because I got busy and was doing other things. So
Yeah.
I got to jump back into it. But I think I'm four episodes into season one.
Okay.
So I'm gonna keep going. It's not that I'm not enjoying it. I am. I just have to, there's only so many hours in the day.
I know, man.
It's just not enough. Not enough time, man. We need like a 37-hour day.
We do. Or not working anymore.
Not
That'll
no no
be
no 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 not working. 37 hours would include sleep time. We need more awake time, Chris.
more
That
awake
doesn't
time.
involve us not getting sleep.
Mm. Yeah, and very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, if you're a nerd out there and you're watching and listening to us, and we're on Star Wars Day at the time of the recording, and we're going to talk about Star Trek, please don't incite violence or start some type of nerd civil war because of this. It's just the way our scheduling has worked out and the recordings of everything, and this is the time that worked best. But we are continuing our Section 31 Spotlight series as we wrapped up Star Trek Deep Space Nine's episodes of Section 31, where it all got started with the episode Extreme Measures. And now we are working our way into Enterprise with the season 4, episode 15, Affliction. So now Enterprise, now Voyager did not do anything Section 31.
Hmm?
They skipped over Voyager with the Section 31 stuff and then decided to bring it back in season 4. And we were talking about this before we started recording, Chris, that season 4 was when Manny Koto kind of took the reins of Enterprise, and season 4 is arguably considered, well, I don't even know if it's arguably, I just think it is probably the best overall season of the entire series.
When I was watching that episode of Affliction today, it had been a while since I watched Star Trek Enterprise. And actually bringing back Section 31, right? The last time Section 31 was in Star Trek would have been in DS9,
Yeah.
right? So it had been a while, but I was so impressed when I watched this episode of Affliction. I looked at it and the quality of the episode and just the crispness of the episode and the production quality and just how it looked all around. I thought it looked terrific, and I was like, oh wow, it made me want to go back in and do a rewatch of Enterprise. Actually, that's how impressed I was when I saw this episode. And then they're deep into season 4 right now, so there's a lot of backstory, a lot of like history between the characters, and they've really like found themselves as characters, and they're really found themselves as a crew right now since they've been doing a lot of teamwork as a crew. So it was really terrific.
Great idea on rewatching Enterprise.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's it, I
yeah,
mean, for real, because I think you've watched it through at least once, right?
yeah.
and I know it's been a minute since you've watched through the show, but this is I've been doing a rewatch very slowly. I mean, I've been doing it for like a year or something like that. It's just I pick up an episode once in a while and watch the next one and so forth. And so I am almost finished with this rewatch. I think it's only my second or third full rewatch of Enterprise.
Yeah.
And when I have gone through this, I have really enjoyed it. And you mentioned about where we're at in the show. It's towards the end because Enterprise got canceled after 4 seasons and they had to wrap it up real quick. So episode 15, we're towards the very, very end of this series. And you mentioned how this idea of the close relationships that the crew had at this point and how much what they had been through. I mean, think about it. Season 3 was one giant long story arc of the Xindies, right? And the war with the Xindi and everything else. So it would make sense given everything that this crew has been through, not only going out in deep space as the first Warp 5 capable, Starfleet vessel and first Earth vessel, but also the fact that they have gone through so many things, especially the Xindi War, really would drive them pretty close.
Yeah, they are very, very close. And so as I was listening to the theme song even meant more to me, like watching it again over here, right? So, because they've just been through so much, and they still have the Vulcans, thinking, "Hey, you're not good enough to be out here exploring." So it just meant more, like as I was listening to the theme song, like, wow, you know, having that idea of wanting to continue on despite like people not believing, despite the Vulcans not believing in you.
Yeah, no joke.
Yeah.
When I watched this episode again, and I'd watched it not that long ago during my rewatch,
Hmm.
uh, I I'll be honest with you. When I've been doing my rewatch, I don't listen to the theme song and opening credits every single episode, right? I
Yeah.
mean, some once in a while I will, but not every time. I did on this one because I don't know, I was like it just felt right to watch the opening
There you
credits,
go.
for
Yeah.
this for doing this quote unquote standalone episode, even though we'll talk about the fact this isn't really a standalone episode later, but yeah, so I just kind of felt
Yeah.
like, the theme song, the opening credits just kind of got me in the right mindset and the right mood to talk about Enterprise.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And we've talked about the theme song before on the show, right? We've talked about the controversy behind it. It's one of those things you either love it or you hate it. I don't know many people who are just like, "Oh yeah, it's okay. I don't really care either way." There's usually very strong opinion one way or the other when it comes to Enterprise's song and opening credits.
My wife does not like it. She's Yeah, she's negative on it. She's like, no. And I say, I like it. I like it. And she's like, no. She's like, why is it there?
She's one of those traditionalists who thinks that the credits should only include instrumental music for Star Trek.
It's- I don't know if that she's so much as a traditionalist on the Star Trek like opening credits, but she just doesn't like the music. She doesn't like that
Oh,
song or the music in it and says it
yeah.
doesn't fit. But I love it.
I think if she did a full watch through
Hmm.
of the show, I think her mind might change a little bit on the song. Maybe not completely, but I think if she watches through it, even if she skips over the song every time and only watches it or listens to it once,
Yeah.
maybe at the very end of the watch through, she might go, "Okay, I think it I may still not like the song that much or whatever, but I think it kind of fits."
Yeah.
And
Maybe.
it just kind of does.
Maybe.
Yeah. Anyways, okay. So let's jump into this. Enterprise season 4 episode 15, Affliction. And we are bringing Section 31 into another Star Trek series.
We are indeed. And if I'm not mistaken, they don't actually ever say the name Section 31 in this episode. Yeah, I'm thinking through it. I'm going through it. This is
I
where a lot of the intrigue comes in this episode for me.
I don't believe they do. And I think that's because this is not a standalone, that it is a to be continued
Hmm.
episode.
Yeah.
And so they're going to pick this up in literally the next episode, episode 16. And I believe in that episode they mention the Section 31 is the name of the organization, but I believe you're right, Chris. I don't believe the actual name is mentioned at all in the episode.
Yeah, so I thought that was excellent. And yeah, it definitely brings some intrigue into it. And we've got Klingons. And we've got Klingons in this episode at the very beginning. And we not only do we have Klingons, but we are linking the Klingons to the Klingons of Toss through all the stuff
Yes.
that goes in this episode, which is pretty cool, right?
And not only that, they're Klingons that don't look like the crappy ones from Discovery either. So,
Right, right. Oh yeah, you have this interweaving of Klingons linked with Toss, plus augments that link you back to uh Khan.
yeah.
Khan's kind of like brethren right there.
Yeah.
Like all in one right here.
And Dr. Soong, who we
And
meet
Dr.
earlier
Soong.
in season 4, right? When he
Yeah.
tries to, I believe that's the one where he tries, it's Cold Station 12, I think is the name of the episode, right?
Mhm.
Where him and his augments break into the station to try to get I believe it's all the embryos and stuff out of there, right? To take them
Yeah.
and go somewhere else. Yeah. So Dr. Soong, the augments, yeah, there's all this interweaving of stuff that you see.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So, well, they kidnap Dr. Phlox, which is like a major major thing. I think that
And
happens
on
like
Earth, too.
yeah, and on Earth. They're walking down the street in the dark and they get well, Dr. Phlox gets kidnapped
Yeah.
and he gets you don't know who they are. Um, but they put up a fight, they stun him, and then they kidnap him. And what I noticed in that fight, actually, this is what stood out to me, was Hoshi does like a nice job of fighting. She does like
Yeah.
she gets the guy, does a flip on one of the guys, and then um someone hits her in the face when she's not expecting it to
Well, yeah,
knock her
she gets
down.
hit from behind, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the
Yeah.
only reason why she went down. It's not because she couldn't take, she couldn't hold her own. She was doing a great job there.
She sure was. I love that. I saw that a couple times and going, wow, like Hoshi did a really good job like
Yeah.
doing that there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you have to think, right? At this point in Enterprise, you've got a crew who's had Makos on board, right? These are
Yeah.
basically Starfleet's version of the Marines. They're a specialty group of a fighting force, right? That come on board Enterprise and are there through a very significant amount of the Zindi episodes, I
Hmm.
believe. And there is some training that the crew does with the Makos
Yeah.
on
Yeah,
board
you're
the
right.
ship, and you see that in some various episodes. So the fact that she is a good fighter and holds her own makes sense, right? Because she would have probably at some point trained with the Makos prior to this episode.
Yeah, she sure would have. I definitely like Earth as the backdrop for the beginning of this episode because we have a few things going on here, like in Earth. I mean, you have them like coming out of the restaurant, Dr. Phlox getting abducted and kidnapped, Hoshi getting beat up. You got this interaction with, I guess it would be local Starfleet security, like
Yes.
with them interacting with Hoshi and the captain trying to find Phlox, and so you see that there's at least Starfleet security on Earth. But then you have this whole other part of the episode where you have the new Starship Columbia that's in dry dock that is like being it's in preparations for its maiden voyage, and the whole backdrop setting of we know now that Trip has applied for a transfer off of Enterprise to Columbia, because all of the personal background between him and T'Pol. So a lot going on at this like beginning of the episode here and close to Earth.
Yeah, very quickly. There's a lot that goes on. I agree with you. I was going to ask you about that. I love the backdrop of Earth. I
Yeah.
love that there's a captain's log at the beginning in November 2154, and Archer's talking about they've returned home as part of this launch of the Columbia, and that he's got to say goodbye to Trip. I believe in a previous episode, I don't know if it was the one before this or a few episodes before, where Tucker makes the decision
Mm.
that he's going to transfer off of Enterprise. And he doesn't come out and say it, but we know it's due to a lot of personal issues with him and T'Pol, right?
Yeah.
There's some issues there. And a lot of it has to do with this idea of, T'Pol basically using him and then trying to play it off as like she's not really interested in him. And I think Tucker feels very uh maybe personally embarrassed a little bit. He feels
Yeah.
neglected, or not neglected, rejected. So there's a lot of that. And so I think that's really the driving force. I know he says that, well, he wants to go on board Columbia and he thinks he can fine tune the ship. And half the time he took Enterprise because he knows what to do now and everything. And he's going to be an asset to Captain Hernandez, I believe is her name,
Hmm.
of the Columbia and all this stuff. But in reality, it's because of the falling out him and T'Pol kind of had.
Yeah, you do. And you have a lot of meaningful scenes with a lot of the characters in here. I mean, there was a really meaningful scene between T'Pol and Archer, and she's asking him like, "Are you leaving because of me?" And you know, Trip is like, "Well, of course not. Like everything doesn't revolve around you, T'Pol." Um, but
Did you
yeah,
see her face though when he said that? Like
yeah,
it was almost this look of, oh, like this kind of embarrassed look, as much as a Vulcan can show embarrassment, right?
yeah,
That she was embarrassed that she asked that question because Trip kind of gave her this snarky answer of, well, not everything revolves around you. And she didn't really know how to take that. And I thought that
yeah.
was very interesting.
It was, and I'm thinking this was intentional, but all throughout the episode, the way T'Pol is behaving through all of the circumstances through all the episode, you can see like on her face, at least that's how I perceived it, that like she's struggling this whole time. She's really bothered, she's really upset, she's struggling, right? And so something's really like hurting her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and because we know how Enterprise ends, I think in this episode in particular,
Hmm.
I think DePaul regrets some of the decisions she's made when it comes to Trip, and I think she regrets some of the ways in which she has treated him,
Yeah.
and is realizing that she's partially, if not fully, to blame for why Trip would be leaving Enterprise. And we know later on, as the show finishes up, we learn that T'Pol has significant feelings for Trip. They both do. They
Yeah.
love each other. And that is not something that was okay back in this period of time with a Vulcan and a human. That just was not a thing. In the way we know it happens in the future.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So now the hunt is on for them. This desperate kind of search is on for them to find Phlox because
Yeah.
they don't know where Phlox is. The first kind of break in the puzzle that they get is trying to decipher like what kind of language the kidnappers used when they were taking Phlox, and Hoshi's kind of the key, but Hoshi can't quite remember because she says, "Hey, I was half unconscious," and it was Archer that comes up with the idea to say, "Hey," he asks to Paul, "Maybe you can help. Maybe do a mind meld with Hoshi. Get that out of there." And T'Pol's like, "Well, a mind meld," and Archer's like, "And I can help you." So and she's surprised at that. She's like, "Well, what do you mean you can help me?" And that's right, Archer sure can. He had Surak's Katra in his mind
Yeah.
for a good while, right? So he can.
Yeah, that trek across the desert on Vulcan with him and T'Pol was pretty grueling.
Yeah,
That heat in that desert, I mean, it was really grueling. And I can remember vividly that episode. And you can see Archer, and he's got this look on his face and these ideas in his head that he thinks maybe he's going insane, that he's
yeah,
having these visions because maybe he's uh, hallucinating, given the fact that, lack of a source of water and heat and everything, that it may really be affecting him.
yeah. That's right.
I do think it's important, Chris, that we mention, Phlox being abducted is significant, not just because the fact that he was abducted by Rigelians and then turned over to the Klingons, but he had been attacked previously. In the Enterprise episode Home, he was attacked on Earth when there was this big, because of the Xindi attack, if you remember in
Hmm.
season three, there were a lot of alien species on Earth that weren't safe because a lot of humans believed that all the aliens should leave, right? The humans became kind of xenophobic
Yeah.
because of the attack by the Xindi. And, to a certain extent, I can understand why. But even though we know Phlox and the Denobulans had nothing to do with that attack, and many
Yeah.
other alien species had nothing to do with it, but I do think it's important to note that because now here is another episode where Phlox is on Earth, and he's been first he was attacked, now he's abducted, and my guess is that at some point they in fact I even think that Commander Collins, who is the chief of security, I believe she even says that there's a possibility that the people who attacked him previously were the ones that took him now.
Yeah, that's right. And Malcolm says, "Oh, well, the guy that was doing it previously was just nothing more than a kind of drunken loudmouth, and he wouldn't be able to organize something like this." And then she says, "Hey, we're exploring all avenues, or seeking all possibilities
Yeah.
like that." You know what's I when she was talking and I was looking at her, the security officer, I was reminded of Tasha Yar.
Hmm. I
I
had the
was.
same
Oh,
thought.
serious?
Yes.
Whoa.
Chris,
Yeah.
how many times have I told you that I believe our minds have become
Yeah.
linked across space and time at this point? We have so many of the same
Mm-hmm.
thoughts. It's almost eerie. I almost feel like I'm almost wondering if at some point while I was living in Alaska,
Yeah.
if I receive some type of unbeknownst mind meld, and that
Dude,
we have somehow been our brains have been wired across space and time.
they are. They're like connected.
They
They
are. Great
they
minds think alike, my friend.
they they are. They are.
I
Um,
thought the same thing though. Yeah.
oh, that is so cool. That is so cool. Um, okay, since we're on this on that particular mind linking topic, this is another thing that happened. So in here, because this was kind of significant, right? There is that mental link between Trip and T'Pol, or T'Pol and Trip, right? They somehow they find each other in that kind of space, that kind of white,
Oh
bright
yeah, the
space, right?
daydream. Yeah.
Daydream.
Yeah.
So, a couple things went through my mind in during the daydream. Um, One of them was, okay, being that it was Star Wars Day, and then I was like, oh, okay, they're mentally linked like this, and they can see each other and have a conversation. Then, um, it brought me to the episode where Kylo and Rey somehow they were able to link in the Force and like have a conversation. Um, what was that? The Last Jedi or wherever. So I thought, oh, that's kind of like, I guess, similar to what Star Wars did. Um, and then other thing went through my mind was I was thinking about Star Trek Discovery. Not on purpose was I thinking about Star Trek Discovery somehow. It just made me think about Star. And not on purpose was I thinking about, like, The Last Jedi or something, because that's not actually part of the canon trilogy in our
I didn't want to
minds,
say
right?
anything, but I'm like, I can't believe you're bringing up Last Jedi right now. But all right, go ahead. I'll
Yeah.
listen.
Yeah. Um, but in Discovery, I want to say in that the first episode, there's like this link between Michael and Sarek when she's in trouble, and she's like in the brig and part of the brig had been blown out, and she has a conversation with him,
Yeah.
like through their minds. So,
Oh, didn't Sarek mind meld burn him at some point? I
yeah,
believe I would assume so, and that's why.
yeah. So they would able to have that like link. So I
Hmm.
was thinking, okay, I guess maybe in Discovery they were pulling from this idea in Enterprise where they could have this, link together, where Trip and T'Pol were able to link together.
Hmm.
So maybe.
Interesting. Well, I have a couple thoughts about that.
Yeah, yes, please.
Number one, I as Doug Drexler would say, you're crossing the streams.
Totally crossed the streams and I wound them up,
Wait
twisted
a
them.
minute, Egon. I thought you said crossing the streams was bad. Um, Number two, I'm I take back the link across time and space because I never would have thought that you would have brought The Last Jedi and
Mhm.
Discovery in the same sentence
Same sentence. Yeah.
into an episode of Star
Same,
Trek Enterprise.
same train of thought. Yeah.
I
Amazing.
that just that was a bit of a shocker for me. I'm very surprised by you, Chris,
There
that
we
came
go.
about.
Yeah.
Okay. So the only thought I had as far as anything it reminded me of that scene between T'Pol and Trip in the daydream, which they were
Yeah.
both having at the same time, mind you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he's like, no, you're in my daydream, get out, or whatever. And they both woke up at the same time, or snapped out of it. What it reminded me of is because of all the white light and everything was white and you couldn't see the floor and nothing, just
Mhm.
void of whiteness. It reminded me of the scene where Picard gets stabbed through the heart by the Nausicaan.
We are linked, man. Totally
Yeah,
linked.
we
Yeah.
we are. I think there was a little bit of a static electrical shock when you talked about Last Jedi, and because Last Jedi is not canon. What do you mean? What are you talking about, Chris? We don't reference that. It's not
Yeah.
canon. Come on now.
Yeah.
But yes, that's what it reminded me of, just visually what it reminded me of. So
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
yeah,
Tapestry. Yes, indeed.
there you go. That's the name. I
Yeah.
couldn't think of my head. Tapestry. Good
Yeah.
choice. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So the search is on. Search is on for Phlox, and I mean, so they do the mind meld, and Hoshi is able to kind of pull out that it was some Rigelian language right there.
Yeah.
They put together some puzzle pieces and said, hey, like a Rigelian ship left Earth orbit like 2 hours after Phlox was kidnapped, and so the chase is on to
Hmm.
to chase that Rigelian ship. Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking about Phlox being kidnapped, the previous episode where Phlox is attacked. Earth is not the paradise
Mm-hmm.
that we know in TNG and DS9, and to a certain extent TOS. Because if you remember, in the two-part DS9 episode, Homefront and Paradise Lost, which I have mentioned many times, we mentioned it during the DS9 episodes for Section 31, and the talk about how Section 31, when they would have gotten to Odo to give him the disease that they hope they pass to the founders to kill all the founders, right? There is a line in that two-part episode where they mention that there had not been a death or a murder on Earth in 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this episode takes place in November of 2154, or that's when it starts, anyways.
Mm-hmm.
This is way over. This is way more than 100. This is like 200 years, over 200 years in the past from when that happened. So I bring all that up because while Earth certainly is a much better place to live than it was pre-World War III and even
Mm-hmm.
during, post, the first contact and everything and leading up to now, it is still not the paradise and not the sanctuary that it is in TNG and DS9 and Voyager. So we kind of have to take that into consideration when you think, well, why is this stuff happening? Earth's supposed to be a paradise and blah, blah. It's not there yet. It will get there in the Star Trek timeline, but it's not there yet. Then that is why these things that are happening still happen.
Mm-hmm.
So just to kind of, I don't know why I went on that little ramble there, but it just kind of got me thinking about, where is Earth at? And why would these things be occurring on Earth? Well, because Earth has not gotten to that quote unquote paradise yet, because they're still working through some things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It is. They are. Meanwhile, as the chase goes on, um, trips on the Columbia. So trying to like ascertain the kind of condition of the Columbia, how much work they have to be able to get it to be warp capable, getting to know his engineering crew, and then meeting the captain. And it's maybe not the smoothest like transition. Um, he's definitely motivating like the Columbia crew to get things working, but you can tell there's some, you know, quite a bit of tension there because they're trying to navigate how they want to respond to Trip.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you notice that Seth MacFarlane is one of the engineering crew on the
Yes.
Columbia? Yeah.
Yep. Yep. He got a couple cameos, I believe, in a couple episodes of Enterprise, which I thought was
Yeah.
pretty cool. He's a huge Star Trek fan, so
Yeah.
it makes sense given the fact he did the Orville.
Yeah, that was cool. So he's doing that.
Yeah.
And Captain, what I liked about this, we got to learn a bit more about Captain Hernandez,
Hmm.
and see her, and she's pretty insightful, I
Hmm.
think. She, yeah, she's really questioning like what Trip's motivations are, to transfer over to the Columbia, and I think she actually she finds out, it's or she understands why, it's some sort of personal conflict like from the Enterprise. But she's insightful. I think that's why she wants to learn more about him, because Trip had said earlier that there's no way he'd ever leave the Enterprise. um yeah,
That's true. Yeah.
yeah.
No, that's definitely true. And now that we're in Enterprise and we're past Voyager and TNG and DS9 and everything, and the fact that Enterprise takes place before all those, Captain Hernandez is the first female captain in Starfleet.
She is the first female captain in
She
Starfleet.
precedes Rachel Garrett, who is a captain of the
Yeah.
Enterprise C that we meet in yesterday's Enterprise,
Hmm.
right? And there's some female admirals and things like that in Starfleet that we meet throughout TNG and DS9. We, of course, our favorite admiral, Admiral Nechayev.
Hmm.
Um, but Captain Hernandez is the first female captain, and she's the captain of the second ship in Starfleet,
That's
right?
right.
For a second warp 5 capable ship in Starfleet. So I think that's something kind of important to note as far as in the timeline of Earth's history in Star Trek, that you have a female captain right away here and with one of the first couple of deep space exploration ships.
Absolutely, she's a foundational captain, which is
Ah,
pretty
for
cool.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was excellent. Yeah. So like as they're trying to find that
Oh,
Rigelian ship. Yeah, yeah,
sorry,
go ahead.
Chris.
Yeah.
The character, the Section 31 character's name is Harris. That's his name.
Harris.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. I just saw
Yeah.
that. Yeah. It's so because remember he asks Malcolm Reed tries to call Starfleet operations and figure out what's going on. And because I think that he was calling to try to see if they had some cameras, you know,
Yeah.
some video footage of what happened. And he calls and he ends up getting a call into this Harris guy who we don't know what organization he works for yet. If you're this was your first time watching it, right?
Yeah.
And mentions that he wants Reed to to meet him in an hour at this place in San Francisco.
Yeah. And I got the sense that there's some history there, or, because Reed wasn't necessarily surprised when Harris answered, right? So that's how I felt. I actually started going, hey, did I miss like another Section 31 Enterprise like sent, episode in there? But this is the first Section 31 like Enterprise episode. So, which
Correct. Yeah.
I really like having this intrigue there. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's interesting because the the guy talks to Reed as if he had one point worked for this particular
Yeah.
section.
Yeah.
And Malcolm says something to the effect of he thought that his time in the service of this section was over. And Harris tells him, "Hey, if you don't help us, then Phlox could die." And I mean, Phlox is a friend. Why would he let Phlox die?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That's right. Because Reed thought his time was over, and Harris is like, "Hey, don't forget what you signed up for," something like
yeah.
that. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. I as we explore it, I want to talk about the Klingons a little bit because
Yeah, they're an important part of this.
yeah, they are a huge part of it, and in a way, I found some kind of humorous things about this whole interaction with the Klingons. So, I mean, they're capturing Phlox because Phlox is a doctor. They want Phlox's help um, to help cure this virus that they got. And I forget the name of the virus that's there, but it was like a common a common virus. But um, we find out that the that particular virus combined with some of them, they're trying to figure out how to do augments at the same time. That virus combined with the augment created a situation where the virus was airborne, and then they're all getting contaminated with the virus. Virus dissolves their ridges, makes them look like human, totally connects it to Toss. Um, but what I I like and I actually found funny was there's some very meaningful scenes with Phlox and the Klingon doctor, um, where Phlox is like, why would I help you? And the Klingon doctor's explaining, well, because if you don't help us, we're all gonna die, and they're threatening Phlox and in that situation. But Phlox is like, why didn't you just come and ask us? Because we would have helped you. And they're like, well, that's not the Klingon way. We can't like look like we're weak. We have to we have to force it out. And we're not allowed to look weak. So I thought that was in a way kind of funny. And then when Phlox realizes that uh the Klingons were dabbling in augmentation and were trying to make their own augments like themselves. The Klingons were like, well, you guys had augments, and just two of your augments took out like a whole Klingon crew. So why would we not want to create our own augments? Right? They're like twisting that logic like back around. So actually, I like that, and I enjoyed that part and exploration of what the Klingons were thinking. Um, and it's kind of funny to think, yeah, the Klingons just didn't want to. They can't they can't look weak at all. So they'd rather like wipe out their own like colony, I think, which they did. They wiped out their own colony like instead of looking weak.
It just goes to show you, no matter the series, no matter the time period, Klingons are always the same.
Yeah, man, Klingons are Klingons. Yeah.
They're Klingons, and I will say, give it props to Manny Kodo and the team that helped produce Enterprise, especially in this particular case, season 4, because they didn't have to go back and try and explain why the Klingons had no forehead ridges in TOS or connect anything. They could have just done the Klingons and not said boo about it.
Hmm.
But they didn't. And a matter of fact, in DS9 and the episode Trials and Tribulations, where they're talking about, well, why do these Klingons look different? And Worf's like, we don't talk about those things. And literally, you could have left it like that and
Yeah,
never said anything, right? And I think it would have been okay. But the fact that they attempted to come up with a storyline to try and explain why the Klingons look different in TOS versus in Enterprise, where Enterprise is taking place before TOS, right? That I thought it was great. And honestly, the explanation and the way in which they approached it, I thought made sense given what had already happened in Enterprise.
totally. And the way they're able to somehow get Section 31 into all of it, weave it in somehow. Like, wow,
And
good for
honestly,
them.
does that not make sense to have Section 31 part of all this? It
Yeah.
does, right? I mean, the Klingons, you know, they don't know a crazy amount about them, but they know that they could potentially be a possible threat to Starfleet and to Earth.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes sense that Section 31 would be there from the beginning. And that Section 31 goes this far back into this idea of what we've already talked about with some of the quote unquote values and principles or lack thereof that Sloane had, and what you have to kind of take at face value that you believe are standard across either all of or a majority of the Section 31 agents.
Yeah, totally. Totally. Um, as a little funny thing that I observed, um, Section 31 keeps their uniforms consistent. They looked like, that's plain black garb
Yeah.
that like kind of carried on all the way through.
I mean, so when Reed beams down, or I don't know, he beams down, or if he takes a shuttle, whatever, it doesn't matter. When Reed goes down to San Francisco, meets up with
Yeah.
Harris. Harris is wearing all his black garb. I mean, doesn't that stand out a little bit with the majority of the people he'd be around, or might see him? It's like, who's that dude wearing all that black leathery looking stuff? What the heck is?
Yeah.
You kind of feel like they'd want to blend in more with the clothing of that time or whatever, but maybe not. Maybe they're so in the shadows that people don't even really think twice about it.
No, but I completely agree with you. I mean, that to me, doesn't that kind of outfit like stand out? Hey, I really want you to know that I'm in a covert kind of secret agency.
Yeah, right.
In case you didn't know, I am in one.
Yeah, to
Yeah.
me it stands out more than it hides,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but you're right. It's very consistent. I guess it would make sense for them to, you know, maybe the one thing with the whole all black and no anything else, there's no design, there's no markers, so it's like, excuse me, it's like if you see somebody wearing that, there's no distinct logos, there's no distinct
Yeah.
things about their clothing that would identify them as such.
Yeah. Yeah,
Maybe
that's right.
that's the thought process behind it. I have no freaking clue, but maybe. Who knows?
Yeah.
Uh, but interesting. So we talked about the meditation and the kind of the daydream that both DePaul and Trip were having together, which I found that very interesting.
Yeah.
Um, and I also found that when they tried to track down the Regellian freighter, that they lost the warp trail on that.
Hmm.
And then they find the wreckage of the craft, the Rigelian ship,
Hmm. Hmm.
which you think, oh, okay, obviously the Klingons destroyed it. They
Yeah.
they don't want this to get back to them, right? So they got rid of it.
Yeah.
Oh, and the virus is a mutated form of the Levodian flu.
Ah, the flu.
That's the
Okay.
the virus they said. But Flock mentions, hey, why don't we contact the interspecies medical exchange?
That's
They might
right.
have some experience dealing with this. He's like, I could call somebody that and make it to where it's not on the up and up. It's not traceable and everything, and they don't need to know the specific details. But Antak or
Yeah.
Ontuk is the Klingon
Doctor.
doctor,
Yeah.
right?
It's like no
And
need.
he's like, yeah, we don't need their help. They don't need to get involved. In fact, we have their whole database here we borrowed. And then Phlox like, you stole the database? And he's like, I don't see much honor in that. He's like, well, if I have to choose between honor and people saving people's lives, I'm going to save people's lives. So it's interesting because this Onatok guy, he's not a typical Klingon in that regard, right? Honor is not his first thoughts,
Right. That was almost like a more of a Romulan move, right? To steal that database.
or Cardassian
Or
even.
Cardassian, yeah. But Antok, he knows that the High Council is never gonna go for or put medicine like as one of their priorities or yeah, life-saving activities as one of their priorities. So he does what he has to do, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that was kind of funny. Antok is I like him as a character because I think he's the same one that he's got his pet, like his I want to say it's not a dog, but his pet
Targ.
Targ
Yeah.
shows up later and he's like, "Hey, it's you already ate. Get out of here," or something like that.
Yeah.
And he reminisces about his Targ, like, "Yeah, I helped him. I sewed him up when he got a cut, like uh when he was younger." So
Yeah.
I like that a lot. There are no this episode, there are no throwaway moments, I think, in this episode. Everyone has like these really meaningful like parts in it. Like from Malcolm to Paul to Trip to Phlox to the Klingon like doctor to Hernandez. It's just I feel like all of these are like key kind of moments and with a lot of meaning, background in all of them.
Yeah.
Great. Great. Um but yeah, if we can start to explore Malcolm, and I know there's some meaningful like particularly meaningful moments with Malcolm that stood out to you, but like but as we lead up to that, right? Like because they find that um Rigelian freighter, it's destroyed, and they're kind of doing analysis like hey, did you scan it for life forms? Everyone's really worried that Phlox was killed in that freighter. Um, but Phlox wasn't. T'Pol says no, they were all Rigelian, and the captain wants to know, like, okay, well, can you do some analysis on it, scan it? Can we identify like who trace who destroyed the freighter?
Yeah.
And yeah, it's really quick. You see Malcolm kind of look at his analysis screen, um, and the screen says like something like analysis confirmed, but Malcolm looks up and goes, "No, I can't confirm anything, sir," or something like
He
that. I can't tell.
lies.
Yeah, he lies. You see it on his face too, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, that conflict there.
He doesn't have a good poker face in this
Yeah,
case, right? I mean, he
yeah.
really doesn't. And in his quarters, Reed calls Harris on a secure channel,
Hmm.
and this is where the frustration is really beginning to mount, right? Because Reed thought he was done with Section 31. He really did. And now he's back to working for them again. And it's causing him to have to lie to the captain, which he doesn't want to do. It's causing him to split his loyalties between the captain and the crew and Section 31. And I think Reed's intentions are honorable. He's doing what he needs to do because he doesn't want Phlox to die, right? And this
Yeah,
Harris guy is kind of manipulating him, right? This
yeah.
Section 31 agent is manipulating him and say, well, if you don't help us, and then Phlox is going to die. It's like, really? All of Section 31 hinges on Malcolm Reed? Like, I don't know about that. I think he's doing it to manipulate him and doing it to guilt trip him into assisting them. But it's interesting, this exchange that goes on, and Reed agreeing to serve Section 31 long before he was assigned to the Enterprise, because Reed's like, well, I think I'm going to tell the captain. And he's like, well, hang on a second. You pledged your allegiance to us long before you were on board the Enterprise. And then, of course, the ship is hit with an explosion, and Hoshi tells all the crew to get to the battle stations. And then, right before he hangs up, he tells Harris, he says, "Hey, the Enterprise is under attack."
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
that exchange to me really sets the stage for these other upcoming moments that we're going to discuss here between Malcolm and Archer.
yeah, yeah. That's right. Um, that the Enterprise is attacked. They get boarded by these. I guess I don't want to use the word commandos, but they get boarded by a group of Klingons, and
Yeah, they're like a
yeah,
raiding party, kind of.
yeah. They
Yeah.
totally they go in.
But they look human, right? These are all ones that have
Mhm.
their forehead ridges that have vanished.
Yep, yep. They disrupt a whole bunch of things. They implant one of their subroutines in the engineering computer so that the ship, is going to have some problems. Um, and they, pretty much cause havoc on the
Yeah.
ship there. Yeah,
And we
yeah.
do also see the Makos in this. So we know the Makos are still around,
They
right? The
are.
Makos are the ones that are deployed to fight back against these intruders.
Yeah, Makos are able to stun one of them and take him prisoner. So
Yeah.
I think, that becomes important.
And the Makos also guard the brig too.
Yeah, yeah. They do.
So they're an important part. I've always thought the Makos were a nice addition to Enterprise. They added a different element. You had the
Yeah.
major, who him and Reed didn't really see eye to eye on much. during season three, and rightfully so. The major, I can't remember his last name, so I'm just saying the major. Um, the major believed that they were there for a specific purpose and reason. They believed they were highly trained, and he was able to lead that group on his own. But then you had Reed, who's a security officer, and he felt, I think, a little bit uh, intruded upon his scope of responsibility on board the ship. And so I really enjoyed that interplay between those two characters and a little bit of that power struggle that went on in the ship in season three.
Yeah, he would have felt slighted. Reed would have felt slighted. The Makos came in. Now I'm trying to remember what the motivation for them to come in. Was that because of the Zindi War? Like they became really prominent and they needed to be there. I don't,
Can't
what
remember
was the
if they
big?
showed up in season three first or if they were in season two before. I want to say they were in season two, but
Hmm.
I want to say that they became very prevalent in season three with all the Zindi stuff going on. I'd have to go back
Yeah.
and look. You think I would know since I had been doing this watch through, but again, I've been doing it over like a period of a year plus, so there's only so much I can remember.
Yeah. So only so much like storage capacity our brains have, man.
Well, and since they say that, what do they say? The average human uses less than 10% of their brain. I probably use half of that. So when you're only using 5% of your brain, I guess, your storage capacity becomes even less.
Okay. Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah. Well, they so Reed, thinking about Reed, right? There's the Rigelian transport. They beam aboard, or they not beam aboard, but they bring on, I guess, the equivalent of the black box from the Rigelian transport, so
Mm,
that they could analyze it, right? And so they
yeah.
go through this process of analyzing it, and I think Reed's the one that's supposed to analyze it first, and then his conclusion is something like, "Oh, well, everything's like undetermined or uncertain, or it wasn't able to get information." But it is to Paul and Hoshi, like when they take a second look, um, they kind of realize that, oh no, it looks like there has been some tampering, like with this device, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they trace the tampering back, because the information on it has been erased. But then they trace back, how was it erased? It was erased by a device. Where did the device come from? Came from a certain locker. And then who accessed the locker? Well, the only one that I could access it was Reed.
Yeah, because I think there's only what, three, maybe four people on the ship that had the right security level to access it,
Yeah.
and the other people didn't. And Reed was the only one in question, and he at first, he was very coy. This was in uh yeah, he got called into Archer's ready room, right? And he's
Hmm.
like, "Oh, that's a very coincidence, or that's very interesting." Like very a little smug. And
Yeah.
Archer wasn't buying it, right? And then that's where Reed is escorted to the brig.
Yeah.
He says something like, I'll answer no further questions anymore about this," or something like that, right? And then Archer calls in the Makos and says, escort the lieutenant to the brig. That's a big deal, right? I mean, you talk about one of the main bridge crew being sent to the brig for what the captain believes is maybe treason, right? I mean, he pulls
Yeah.
Malcolm in. Like, you remember he grabs him and pulls him in. He's like, "Malcolm," like he's trying to get him to tell him, and Malcolm just won't crack.
Yeah. He's very disappointed and betrayed, right? You see that look of
Yeah.
that hurt. He is so hurt. I saw that look on his face. There was like he asked Malcolm, like, this is one of the final questions. Um, and he was like, "Do you have any idea, like, who or how it could have been erased or who could have done it?" And, Malcolm says, like, "Oh, no, sir." And no idea. But Archer already knew the answer, right? He was hoping in his mind, he was hoping Malcolm would kind of come out and say the truth. So when Malcolm said, "Yeah, I have no idea," I saw that look on Archer's face, like he was so disappointed. He's like, "I saw the," he says, I saw that this was traced back to you. I saw the sensor logs and like you lied to me. I saw the sensor logs personally, and then he has him escorted out.
I mean, if you're Archer, and because of where we're at in the show, we're almost to the end of the series. Can you imagine all that stuff you've been through with him in particular in this case?
Hmm.
And for this to happen, I mean, the level of betrayal you would feel would be just unmeasurable,
Yeah,
right?
totally unmeasurable. Um, which that totally makes sense because near the end of this particular episode, this is when Malcolm's in the brig. There's some stuff happening. Malcolm's saying, "Hey, you could use a security officer. I can help. I can help." Just Captain Archer just leaves. Doesn't even acknowledge him. I think just leaves, right? Yeah.
That was a real intense moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it's almost like when Archer kind of figured it out, right? That Reed had was the one that had done this and then wasn't forthcoming about what happened and was lying and everything else. Uh, and then, Malcolm tells him that his obligations go beyond the crew and the ship at times.
Yeah.
And Archer feels like he's committed treason and everything else. Uh, that the shock on Archer's face, the anger, it's I compare a little bit of this to the same way I think that Benjamin Sisko felt when Eddington betrayed him. Were you gonna say the same thing?
I was close. I was thinking
Okay.
I wasn't I was thinking about Cisco though. But continue. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because different in the sense though that Benjamin was pissed off that he didn't see it coming because Benjamin
Mhm.
normally he feels like he's very in tune and everything else and he mentions that these kind of things don't happen to him and everything and he had the wool pulled over his eyes so to speak
Yeah.
right by Eddington. With Archer, he's so disappointed because I think that he believes he's gotten to know Malcolm real well. That episode, what was the name of the episode?
Oh.
Was it Starship Mine, the one where Malcolm gets his leg caught with the mine on the
Yeah.
outside the hole, and they're outside in their EV suits, and Archer's
Yeah.
got her to get it off without blowing up, and there was a lot of discussion there, and I feel like Archer and Reed especially got to know each other quite well, and Archer really got to know a lot more about Malcolm personally from
Yeah.
that one episode. So moving forward, it's like he felt like he knew him, and now he's been betrayed so badly,
Yeah.
and Archer is so, I think, disappointed and hurt that Malcolm would do this.
So hurt. Yeah. I think this is this after the episode where they it was Malcolm's birthday and they were trying to figure out his favorite like food so they could
Yes,
get
I
it for
believe
his
so.
birthday. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
So
Yeah, but who was the thing you were thinking about Cisco with as far as the betrayal?
oh, I was thinking about so in this scenario in Enterprise, you've got, Captain Archer and Reed and um Captain Archer like having no idea what's going on and feeling all this sense of betrayal and Section 31 involved. And then in DS9, Captain Cisco and Dr. Bashir and Captain Cisco's like, "Yeah, tell Section 31 you want to work for them because we want to find out more about them, right?" So it's kind of a little bit of the opposite dynamic where um Captain Cisco is kind of aware of all the stuff that's going on with Section 1, Section 31. He's like, "Okay, Bashir, yeah, just tell him, yeah, you're going to work for them because we're going to try and take them down together." So um um that's the circumstance I was thinking about, like just the contrast between those two.
Yeah, and I wonder too because this is over 200 years in the past from
Yeah.
DS9, right? I wonder how deep and how far-reaching Section 31 is in this time period versus in DS9, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
how much
Mm-hmm.
bigger of an organization is Section 31 in DS9's time period? 2170s or 2370s versus 2150s that Enterprise is, right? Like mid 2150s. Like it has to be more, right? Section 31 would have
I
to be
think. Yeah.
a bit larger or have some more significant level of influence. I mean, we learn in those DS9 episodes that Section 31 goes up to the highest levels
Yeah.
within Starfleet and the Federation, right?
Yeah. I mean,
So
yeah.
I can't imagine Section 31 has that level yet
Yet.
at
Yeah.
this particular point, but they're big enough to where they can recruit people and have some significant level of influence and impact on things that are happening.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is the first, um, yeah, this is the first kind of human exploration, right? That's going out, the first starship that's going out exploring, and so already they're having some significant impact on the events that are unfolding.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah,
And we saw the lengths to which Section 31 would go in DS9.
yeah,
And we're starting to see the way Section 31 is beginning to intertwine itself here in Enterprise. And we'll
yeah,
see that there's like I think 3 or 4 episodes of Enterprise that have Section 31 that we're going to focus on. And we'll see how that continues to intertwine more and how much more Reed's going to get involved, other than just this one moment where they kind of bring him back into the fold.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Mm. So yeah, Malcolm is pretty. It's interesting. I mean, Malcolm's pretty devastated, like when he gets to the brig, and he's hurt himself, but he still kind of maintains the secrecy of Section 31, at least in this episode, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't spill it all to the captain. He's just kind of,
No.
yeah, yeah,
It's interesting. Malcolm, if you're in Malcolm's shoes in this episode, Chris, would you feel like, okay, I did this thing even though I didn't want to get involved back with Section 31. I thought I was done with them, but here I am getting back involved with them because I'm trying to help save a friend's life in Dr. Phlox. But by doing that and not being able to say anything, I have now betrayed the captain. And the question becomes, if I'm Malcolm Reed, I'm thinking to myself, will the captain ever be able to trust me again? Have I lost all confidence and trust from the captain? Will I have to resign from Starfleet? I mean, there's so many things that will be going through my head sitting in that brig,
yeah,
having that time to contemplate, right? Uh, it would be a real tough spot to be in, because like I said before, I think in this case, because Reed and Sloan are not the same people,
yeah,
right? And so I think Reed is doing what he's doing out of the the right motivation, the right motives to save a friend's life in Phlox.
mm-hmm,
But what he doesn't realize is, I think, maybe just how entwined he's getting back into this organization.
yeah. When the um, when the Klingon prisoner was put in the cell adjacent to Reed, this is the Klingon prisoner that looks human.
Yep.
Um, what I noticed, and maybe I was missing something, kept thinking maybe I'm missing something, but Reed was not surprised at how that Klingon appeared. He just still he just kind of like, yep, he's a Klingon, and he wasn't surprised at all. And then when the Klingon started coughing, um, Reed was at that moment it looked like Reed was putting together the pieces like, hey, this guy's been infected. Um, and then he says some things to the Klingon, said, hey, we're trying to do the same thing. We're trying to save you, trying to cure you.
Hmm.
So Um, when I heard that from Reed, I was like, oh, does he know? He must know like a lot about what's going on for him not to be surprised that this Klingon doesn't have any ridges, just kind of looks human. And that, as soon as he starts coughing, he's like, hey, we're trying to cure you. We're trying to do the same thing. So that's what came to my mind. I'm like, wow, this seems like he knows a lot.
Yeah, that's true. And we don't know all the details that he's gotten because we know there's a previous history with him and Harris in Section 31. We don't
Yeah.
know all the details he's gotten from Harris throughout the episode. We just know that he is involved in some aspect, right?
Yeah, that's right. Um, this was a little part in it, but this is a real minor detail. But when Reed calls Harris, he says use security code like 79 Baker. Um, that just stuck with me in my mind for some reason.
I didn't even
That-
remember that. So
right? But just that obscure kind of fact that like, okay, Reed, that was right there in his mind. Hey, I know I'm gonna use this particular like security code to contact Harris. Like almost like that was like natural. He had done that
yeah.
before, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know how heavy of an involvement he's had in Section 31 yet, but obviously he's been involved enough to know these things and have these
Yeah,
things kind of etched in his memory, right?
yeah,
And so and you just don't know at this particular point in the timeline, you don't know how deep and how far Section 31 reaches. You don't know the levels and depths to which they will go to
hmm,
accomplish their goal that they believe is for the betterment and safety of the Federation citizens. So, yeah, there's a lot here that you're trying to figure out and trying to think through. And of course, we know that as the ship is increasing velocity, trying to get to Phlox, right? They're going warp 5.2, which is significant. They're pushing the ship as fast as it can go while still trying to get rid of this Klingon subroutine that was put into their
hmm,
computers, almost like a virus.
yeah,
And so it's a bit of an uncertainty here as the episode ends and says to be continued.
yeah. I like it. I
Yeah.
like it.
Now I want to ask you this question, Chris, as we wrap up this episode, because it's not Section 31 related, but it had me thinking. I don't know why I thought about this just now, but if there's a period of time on in the Star Trek timeline that you know from the different series and shows and movies and stuff that we've watched in Star Trek, what period in Star Trek would you want to live?
Wow. This is a great question.
I don't know why that question came into my head,
Yeah.
but as I was watching this episode, I maybe because the idea of going back to Earth and, what would life be like this period of time versus other
Yeah.
periods and what would be better. And I don't know. Is there a period of time in the timeline? You could say like the period of time from a series, like say, oh, I'd like to live during the TNG era or the Voyager era, which is a little in the future, or
Yeah.
Discovery, although that'd be a little weird. But anyways, um, is there a particular era of Star Trek that you would say, yeah, I would love to live during that era?
Wow. This is a great question again, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah. At the moment, I'm gonna think about this more, but at the moment, I'm like TNG. Kind of feel like that, like in that TNG era.
Yeah.
Uh, Being able to live in that era. I feel like the Federation is like feels well, you know, well formulated at the time. Is feels strong. We don't have the war with the Dominion yet. Um, the Borg though is a huge threat, so that's like a real period of generation of desperation.
Yeah.
Um, but I feel like yeah, for me at the moment, kind of the TNG time. I'll
Interesting.
think through that through this more though too. This is a really great question. How about you? Which one are you thinking?
So the reason I brought this reason this question popped in my mind, because I'm thinking about, what life is like today for us, right? And what we're going through and the things we have and don't have and so forth. And where our space exploration is right now, which is not too far, right? We're still pretty much in low Earth orbit trying to get back to the moon and, maybe one day to Mars and things like that. And we've talked about the expanse and that idea of colonizing the solar system and so forth. I really think I would love to live in this period in Enterprise
Enterprise? Yeah.
because I feel like it's close enough to us where there's enough familiarity, but to the point in the future where it's like we could go literally and explore other worlds. There's other civilizations out there. Um, you have the whole Zindi thing, obviously, and Enterprise doesn't get into it because they cut the show short because the studios are idiots. But you eventually have the Romulan Earth Wars that would happen and so forth.
Yeah.
But I don't know, this idea of exploration, this idea of going out for the first time as humanity deep into space where they haven't gone before, and learning and growing, and this idea and ability to be able to come back to Earth. And there's some similarities to what it would be like now, but enough in the future to where you have other things. Yeah, the transporter, you probably don't want to use that yet, uh, unless it's an emergency. But there's enough, and there's no holodeck minus that thing the alien showed Trip and them, where Trip gets
Hmm.
pregnant with the nipples on his wrist,
Hmm.
which was a terrible episode. But um, so that you don't have you don't have some of the luxuries and comforts you do in TNG and DS9 and
Hmm.
Voyager and so forth. But I really like this era. I really do. I think it'd be a really fun era to be part of that early Starfleet, those first explorers going out on those warp 5 plus capable ships, and really, this is an Enterprise, right? This is before the founding of the Federation, right? So you have Starfleet, but the Federation charters haven't been written and signed. They haven't come in, well, not till the final episode of Enterprise, but you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
it'd be a really fun era of exploration and science and discovery that would be so much fun.
you're on the frontier of it for
Yeah,
sure.
exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
decisions that you're making, things that you're doing are going to set the stage and the foundation for future generations. To
See,
me,
this
I
is,
don't know. It sounds really great.
I'm feeling like that, when you watched this one, you listened to the theme song, you listened to Faith of the Heart. I'm thinking the lyrics resonated with you and
They
that,
did,
and
my
that,
friend. Yeah.
and then, the images of exploration resonated as they did with me. And yeah, yeah, beautiful, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And honestly, this isn't the first time I've thought of this. It's just the
Hmm.
most recent time I've thought of it. But at, anytime I've gone back and watched Enterprise, I've always thought, what would it be like to be part of that first crew to go out, right? That on board the Enterprise and being a part of that exploration and seeing things and doing things that nobody else had before. And you know, you don't have the Borg yet, although there's that one episode where they find the Borg frozen under the ice on Earth. I
Yeah.
think in Antarctica.
Oh,
Isn't it Antarctica there they find him? I think.
was it? I hope
I
it
think
was,
I
and
think it was. Yeah, the
not
Borg
hard.
might be
Yeah.
listening to us, so be careful.
Yeah. Yes.
Um, but you know, you don't have some of those things yet, right? You don't have the Dominion yet. You don't have the Cardassians, and I mean, so there's a lot of stuff out there still. But well, we do have the Ferengi. The Ferengi make an appearance in Enterprise.
Hmm.
But I don't know. I just there's a big part of me that feels like it because of the close proximity to us now, that it would be such a cool thing to jump ahead, 130 years or so, and be able to be a part of that exploration and experience some of this technology that right now we can only dream about.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just kind of neat. I thought it'd be fun.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So, I think a pretty cool little first jump into Enterprise's Section 31 episodes as we continue the Spotlight series. I found, like you said, Chris, at the beginning, a lot of intrigue, a lot of
Hmm.
mystery, and a lot of complexities that happen in this episode.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. The way they were able to masterfully, in my opinion, like interweave all of these kind of past elements of Star Trek, bring them together, like in this episode, was great. Um, yeah, it was great.
Yeah, they really did an absolutely wonderful job on this episode. This episode was the story actually was by Manny Koto.
Mm.
The actual, teleplay script was by Michael Sussman, and it was directed by Michael Grossman. So Manny Koto had a big hand in putting this story together.
Very nice.
Yeah, which would make
Very
sense, right?
nice.
We've talked
Yeah.
about the impact. Rest his soul, Manny Koto. We've had the talked about the impact that Manny's had on
Hmm.
Enterprise and in season 4 in particular, and why this season has been so incredibly good as part of the
Yeah.
series. It's just unfortunate. Like if Enterprise had gotten a couple more seasons and Manny Koto has still been at the helm, I mean, we can only just dream about how amazing another couple seasons of Enterprise would have been, given the fact that at this point Enterprise had its legs, it was on this upward trajectory, and then bam, it's canceled. I think this show would have just been even more dynamite than it already was if it had gotten those extra seasons. I mean, think about a season or a season and a half story arc of a continual long Romulan Earth wars with the Columbia and the Enterprise and maybe some other new Starfleet ships and the battles
Yeah,
they could have and all the maybe some of the one-off episodes. I mean, it would just been so freaking good.
it would have been great.
Yeah,
It would have been great.
it would have been awesome. But
Hmm.
well, anyways, thank you everybody as always so much for watching and listening all over the globes and the interwebs in
Hmm.
Antarctica and maybe under the ice in Antarctica. If you're a Borg drone listening to us, hopefully not, but if you are, thank you. We appreciate it. Be sure to go on Facebook and Instagram, check us out there, and also on Threads and your favorite podcast platform.
Ah, yeah.
And if you're watching us on YouTube, you already know we're here. But if not, you can find a video version of this episode and many others on our YouTube channel. And we look forward to continuing our Section 31 Spotlight series. We've got a couple of celebrity guests that I'm working on lining up. We had to do some rescheduling with them due to our own personal schedules and theirs. We're going to work on getting those rescheduled. And as soon as we have dates, we'll announce those coming here very soon. But looking forward to chatting with each of them and learning more about them and their careers.
Yeah, it'll be really outstanding. It'll be fun to do.
Yeah. It's been a while since we've had a guest like that. So it'd be nice to
Yeah,
have somebody back on.
it would be great to see the perspective. It'd be great to see this perspective for sure. And then I think eventually we're going to actually, after we get through these Section 31 episodes, we will watch the actual Section 31 movie and then see how it goes. I think I saw, it wasn't really a spoiler, but I saw something where it talked a little bit about Section 31 and aspects from TNG that showed up in Section 31.
Hmm.
I think
Interesting.
I think Tasha's like home planet.
Mm.
But that's all. That's what I saw. So otherwise,
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know anything.
Yeah. Neither do I. I don't know much anyways, but especially when it comes to the movie. Uh yeah. So I was thinking too, Chris, it would be fun, I think, to do a spotlight series at some point where it's like Zach and Chris's favorite episodes, right?
Yeah.
Like we each pick 5 episodes and we do a 10 episode series, spotlight series, and we each just pick 5 Star Trek episodes from across the Star Trek universe, and we just like we could alternate. Chris, Zach, whatever, we go through all 10 and we do this. We do our deep dive of each of those of our favorite episodes. I mean,
Be
they're our
so
favorites,
fun.
so they'd be a
Yeah.
ton of fun to talk about.
Yeah, they totally would be a ton of fun to talk about. Be cool.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, and not only that, we also talked about the idea maybe of a spotlight series. We look at like some of the best Starfleet Admiral episodes, like the
Yeah.
the Admiral Preston and
Yeah.
the Admiral Ross and Admiral Nechayev. I mean,
Yeah.
there's some that'd be a fun one too down the road. But
Yeah.
yeah.
That would be
Anyways,
great. That'd be
okay.
great
Well,
study.
thank you everybody so much as always. We look forward to bringing you more soon. Be sure to go back and watch our previous Spotlight Series episode of Section 31 to catch up to get us up to this point if you haven't already. And we look forward to seeing you again soon right here on the Random Redshirt Podcast.